We're watching you today.
What?
No.
Welcome back to A People's Guide to Publishing, episode, I believe, 52. You can check the other episodes if you're really concerned about what number it is.
Take 2. I'm Ellie Blue. I'm the marketing and editorial director here at Microcosm.
I'm Joe Green, and I'm a coronavirus vector.
But we all are at this point in history. I am your once upon a time host, Joe Beal, founder, CEO of Microcosm, author of A People's Guide to Publishing.
So today's episode, we're going to talk about reader engagement, as in, like, you've written a book, or maybe you're writing one. How do you, like, actually connect with the people that are reading your book, or have read it, or will read it, or that you want to read it, or that they want to read it, but they don't even know yet? Dr. Faith Harper, who is the author of Unfuck Your Brain, can you tell us what kind of forms your audience engagement takes?
Facebook. I have Instagram and Twitter. I did get rid of my LinkedIn because it was basically just a site for middle-aged white men to hit on me. And I have people that also email me directly because I have websites and the like. So I do get engagement from people on all of those platforms and directly by email, and of course at events as well.
Do you go out and seek that engagement, or is it mostly people coming to you?
I'm not a very good twat. I don't Twitter very well. Honestly, my Twitter and my Instagram and all those things are just like what amuses me, and so it is very much exactly how and who I am, and I don't even like hashtag, and Mr. Green is always reminding me that I should hashtag and those kinds of things. So I'm not like doing it in this marketing kind of way. It's just sort of naturally who I am and what I'm interested in, like mental health memes and pictures of my cats. And so people who are reading that stuff, who will come look for me, enjoy that. And actually, the other Joe here has said, you've had people that didn't even that follow me on Instagram that didn't realize I was also a writer just because they came for the mental health memes and cat photos. So it's very organic, and I think people connect to it because it is and does feel like a very personal page. So I'm not like trying to showboat or collect followers and that kind of thing.
I appreciate that. I mean, and there's like definitely different schools of thought. Like you could have a super glossy page where you were like sell, and here's a little authentic bite here and there. But the people that I follow on Instagram are the people who are just like, hey, here's me, here's what's going on, a good day, a bad day, a sexy selfie, a weird selfie,
all kinds of thirst traps, whatever it may be. Yeah.
Yeah. So like trying too hard on social media. I feel like we talked about this in a recent episode.
Probably recently, yeah.
Don't do it. Don't try too hard. Can you talk more about the like, when you have direct interactions with readers, like over email or in person, like how does that go, and like what advice do you have?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I have to be particularly careful of is I am licensed, and I'm only licensed in Texas. So a lot of times people will want, to ask me a question or have advice, and just by law, I have to be really careful about that anything that it could be construed as entering like a therapeutic relationship I have to avoid. So I do feel bad when people have a very authentic and real question that I legally can't answer. But everyone's been really good when I explain, like, I can't answer this, maybe look at this resource or that resource. But I have a lot of people just, wanting to share their story. We went to go see the new Hannah Gadsby tour last year, and it's going to be on Netflix pretty soon, her second one. And she said, like, when the first one blew up, she said there's all these pictures of me when people like met me and were super excited to take their picture with me, but then were telling me their trauma at the same time, so I look horrified in every picture. And I appreciate, like, I do get a lot of that, of people telling me their traumas, but like they're needing a space for that. And I get that, and that's also just showing how much people need to be able to, to share their truth. Sometimes it's just like, hey, I've had a lot of shit going on and your book was helpful. Sometimes people, go into a lot of detail. And it's tough because I can go, wow, that's a lot, and I'm glad you're taking care of yourself, and I can't kind of give any advice or direction back. And every once in a while I get fun hate mail. I send you the best ones.
How do you cope with the hate mail? Do you respond to it?
No. I mean, and it's not like hate mail, like, oh, you fucked this up in your book or something that's actually constructive feedback. It's usually like, well, I read 2 of your books now and I'm tired of your language. And I'm like, the first one wasn't enough. Like, you're confused at this point. Help me help you. Please stop reading my books. Sometimes we actually had one recently where it was someone who really loved the books and is a teacher with younger kids and was using the activities. And, just by the nature of the language, genuinely can't bring it into the school system, and was asking if we would maybe do a YA version, not like, I'm so offended by the word fuck, I want you to make a clean version, for me and my sensibilities. But and so the way they even brought that up and why they were asking for it was something that we're like, yeah, maybe we should do that. It makes sense. So like getting good feedback is never a problem. Just like, fuck you for making fun of Donald Trump's hair. I happen to love Donald Trump's hair. Kind of stuff. I'm just like, okay, well, I don't have, I'm too old to give a fuck. Like, doesn't reflect on me as a person or the work that I'm doing. It's a stylistic issue. And of course, my first thought is like, wow, if you're that upset by a book that you're taking that time and energy to yell at the author, wait till you find out what your elected officials are doing.
Right. So Mr. Dr. Faith, aka Joe Green, is also an author. Here's his most recent publication. It's a zine, The Intro to Kennedy's Chappaquiddick Conspiracy, 1969. He's also the author of the Conspiracy Fun Book and multiple other zines, and is also a playwright. Can you tell us about...
You're asking him this question literally minutes after he was trolling someone on a message board.
This is true. I didn't know what the hell I was doing when I started out, and so the fact that I write about 100 different topics, and then I'm also a playwright who's worked on movies, like doesn't really make sense. Like I can't combine those things together into a coherent piece. So I have people who like the plays and people who like my conspiracy stuff and history stuff, and they don't really meet most of the time.
You don't have a brand.
I don't have a brand. Yeah, I'm lurching towards having a brand.
Your wife has a brand. Maybe you can talk to her.
Yeah, she's good at this kind of thing. I'm not. Yeah.
So how do you deal with like A, the person that writes and is a big fan, or B, the person that writes and wants to tell you how wrong you are?
Most of the people most of the emails I get are polite. They're a lot of the fans are great. I mean, they're fans of the work and they go all over the place and they write me very nice notes, and I appreciate it very much.
Awesome.
And then I have people who will say, you wrote this and I disagree with this fundamentally, and I've had pretty good like back and forth with some of those folks. Some of them getting upset immediately and then don't want to, and it's fine. I mean, I don't care. But I do get a lot. Where we have overlap is that I do get emails from people who are very passionate about their personal trauma and think that I can help in some way.
Got it.
And there's not a lot I can do for somebody.
Yeah. We can hold space for that story, but that's about all we can do.
Yeah.
It is odd that even the People's Guide to Publishing fan mail is also people talking about their trauma.
Mm-hmm. So Joe Beal, also an author.
Oddly enough.
Can you tell us a little bit about your engagement with your readers?
I guess that's how the podcast happened, is that we received regular fan mail for the book, and Amazon Vine, a service that I am hesitant to promote, but was very instrumental in launching the book so effectively, begot us 30 reviewers on Amazon, who turned out to be the only negative reviewers of the book, because they all wanted it to teach them how to make money on Amazon. But it did sort of create the intended effect of traffic, which brought actual people with publishing history or aspirations to come and learn more. And by and large, those were the people that said, this is the most educational book about publishing I've ever read, and I've read all of the other books, which is really kind of the dream when you write a book about a subject, that you could disrupt the shelf in this manner. It's actually the advice given in the book. Mm-hmm. And so, then consequently, I started to get frequent questions, and this is my 25th year, so I'm past the point of working as a consultant, and I don't really enjoy it anymore. But I enjoy having community, so I took all those requests for me to consult with other publishers, and I said, well, we can answer your questions on the podcast, or we can, if you have a really quick and easy question, I can answer it in email. And by and large, that created friendships, relationships, actual people that I can relate with, because, as I probably expressed several times, it's hard to find people that are at an equal part in their career as I am, because I've just been doing it so long and not at like a executive level at a large company.
I do get a lot of messages, you probably do too, like, so I also would like to be a trauma therapist or a sex therapist or whatever. How do I start? And my answer is by doing research. Because that's like such a big and complicated question to answer. And you probably think, so how should I start a publishing company? And you're like, well, read the book. If I can answer a question quickly, like, hey, I was doing a lot of research. What do you think about this program for postdoc certification? I can tell you, what I know or don't know about it. But when it's could you spend 2 hours answering these questions for me? I don't physically have the time, knowing that I'm getting many of those every week.
Yeah.
And it's not a matter of being shitty and trying to keep all the clients to myself and not wanting to, to help other people grow. But it is extremely time consuming to have open-ended questions.
Yeah.
I can also say too, especially when it's formal stuff like, hey, can you speak at this event or do my podcast? I do better getting an email. I don't always see DMs, and I certainly don't see them quickly. And there tends to be more of that too, where people are making professional requests by direct message on websites. And my middle-aged cranky ass prefers getting an email. I won't lose it that way.
So there are many ways to handle audience engagement, and there are many types of engagement that your audience will ask of you or not ask of you, depending on what kind of book. And for some people just starting out, the idea of just having anyone write to them or contact them at all who has read their book or is interested is amazing.
Yeah, it's
and
exciting.
Then, like, once you get into it, it can start to feel like a burden if you don't have, like, kind of keep your heart in the place where you started out from getting into it.
And we have a really good book called Unfuck Your Boundaries, if that's
I
it.
once worked with a beginning publisher who felt really confronted by anytime anyone contacted them to ask for anything, even if it was like, oh, hey, can you ship this book in this specific way, or can you advise me about something in the book, and kind of felt so obligated to say yes and give everybody what they asked for that they just felt overwhelmed and were angry at everybody that reached out to them. So, like, yeah, knowing your boundaries and having a good sense of what you will and won't do and say, and even having an FAQ page on your website. Literally, that means frequently asked questions. If you get asked questions frequently, put it on the same page of your website as that has your website or email address and contact form.
Yeah, and I had to do that recently, and it kind of got into like, shit, well, I guess I'm big enough that I need to do this now, because there are people that are genuinely like, I'm not trying to be a dick and make your life difficult, so if I can figure out what your boundaries are around this, I'll know whether or not to bother you. But I've never been like offended by somebody reaching out, especially people just like, hey, I loved your book and it was very helpful. I adore that because that's why I'm doing it. Every once in a while someone will ask me for something ridiculous. I'm like, really? Well, good try.
Once a week I get asked for somebody to take me out to coffee for 2 hours to basically obtain the entire
I pick your brain?
contents of the book.
Yes.
Which would be like, a professional service worth at least hundreds of dollars, I would hope,
Yep.
And so it does, when they could literally read the book.
How do you respond when people ask you for that?
My marketing director advised me to say that they could give them a link to purchase the book, tell them I'm not available for consulting, and to point out that we have a podcast if they want to submit specific questions.
Anyway.
Yeah, she's got pretty good boundaries. Apparently, she read the Unfuck Your Boundaries book. And
Like 8 times.
Yeah, when I was a young publisher, I too felt the obligation to, well, actually, like you were saying, to answer and help every single person that contacted me. But the problem is then you're just rewarding the people that are the most entitled.
Yep.
Not the people that are neediest. And it's
Yeah.
really, and then if you feed entitlement, they don't get less entitled.
Yeah.
No.
And to be fair, like, and I know that you do this as well, and we both do, is I do like a lot of volunteer work and a lot of free trainings and stuff, but I want that to be the things that I'm really passionate about, because the amount of time I have for those kinds of things is fairly limited. Saying, hey, can you do this for me because it's what I'm passionate about, we may not have that same alignment. And if I know I only have a certain amount of time that I can do things, it's gonna be the stuff that, has a lot of meaning and value, for me. And that doesn't mean that, I don't care and I'm not doing stuff, but I time limited in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, know your boundaries, know your values, and have fun talking to people about your shared passions. How's that for a summary?
Pretty good, and
Okay.
great of you to avoid pointing out that you are also an author as well. Great work.
Do you want to hear my frequently asked questions?
Yes.
Sure.
I'm coming to Portland with my bike on X date. What are your recommendations for what I should do? I had to put that on my FAQ page. I was actually very surprised.
Ride your
Travel
bike.
guide.
Yeah. Travel guide. Also, like, can you help me with my homework? or can you do my homework for me, essentially. That came from both students and civil servants.
What kind of homework?
Like, about sort of like the history of transportation.
I want to ask you 27 questions and you answer them in full, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, those are like, I guess, the two that came up the most that I didn't feel like answering in full every time, so I put them on my FAQ. A, like, here are my recommendations in Portland. B, no, I will not do this. But, like, yeah, a lot of questions, a lot of contact was just people that were like, hey, I liked this thing. And sometimes it was people being like, do you want to come speak, or will you do this interview? And eventually, at one point, there were so many interviews, this was a while ago, that, like, I would be like, I will answer 4 questions. I would choose them well. Also, a while where I considered putting up an autoresponder to respond to every email that just contained my frequently asked questions. People weren't answering them. But the good news is, if you, like, don't engage in your subject matter for long enough and you don't write another book on that subject for long enough, all of that really dies down within a few years.
Okay.
So
if you wait 10 years, people will eventually fuck off.
If you decide you don't like engaging about this stuff, you can make it stop. I still get it a little bit, and I do kind of like it. I've moved on in my interests a little bit, so there's that, I guess.
You hate bicycles? That's what I'm getting out of this.
This has been A People's Guide to Publishing, episode 51, or maybe 52, wherein you hear some disturbing new details about Ellie Blue's personal life. Thanks for joining us once again.
Please send your questions to podcast@microcosmpublishing.com so we can answer them on future episodes.
And please give us 5 stars on iTunes and everywhere else that podcasts are reviewed.
You can find us on the internet at microcosm.pub.
On Twitter at Microcosm.
On Facebook at Microcosm Publishing.
On Instagram at Microcosm_pub.
And here in Portland, Oregon on North Williams Avenue.
Thank you so much.
Have a wonderful week.